All
right, everyone, we're going to start.
Of the Finance Committee and the Selectmen. So the first order of business will be reviewing the Conservation Commission.
We've been having everyone sit here, if you don't mind. Welcome. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Chair of the Conservation Commission.
I'm Maxwell Bolus. I'm the conservation agent for the town of Clinton.
Great, welcome.
Do we know why they don't have?
They have that microphone there, but
Okay, that's okay.
for the friends at home, but so if you could just, we're finding that the acoustics are bad, so if you could just speak
Sure.
loudly, I have to do the same, so.
So we submitted our budget request. I think Sean sent it on to Mr. Ward. Couple of line items. We have recently entered into a partnership with the town of Sterling for a shared conservation agent. So that's the first line item on there is the salary that we pay back to Sterling. So he's Sterling's employee and we reimburse Sterling for.
Right. So it's not a salary line item. That's why it's not on a grid. He's on their grid. We just get billed for it.
And we have our operating costs, printing, office equipment, things that get billed to us, and then our $5,000 for the Russia Farm Subcommittee, conservation maintenance of Russia Farms, invasive species management plan, etc.
So you're both from Sterling?
So I'm the chair of the Clinton Conservation Commission. Max is our shared agent. He's a Sterling employee, but we reimburse Sterling on a quarterly basis for his time.
So I do 20 hours in Sterling and 20 hours in Clinton per week.
Do you have an office in Clinton?
I do, yeah. It's just down in the basement with the planning and the planning clerk.
And what's it, Tuesdays and Thursdays here and Fridays kind of a float?
Yeah, so Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 to 5, and then Fridays from 10 to noon. Those are reserved mostly for like site visits, kind of end of week paperwork.
Does anybody have any more questions or any questions at all?
And we had budgeted for this position last.
We put we increased the budget from 7,500 to 20,000 last year to cover.
A consultant?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And we ended up, that's getting us through, correct me if I'm wrong, that's getting us through the rest of this fiscal year. So this will be to the cover next fiscal year.
Just curious, what's your background in conservation?
So I have done native plant research for the past 2 to 3 years, and I graduated from Fitchburg State University with a degree in environmental biology.
Thank you.
He also has an enforcement background, which
I served as a law enforcement officer in Calais, Maine, for a period of about 8 months.
Okay. Somebody share a kid.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else?
Great.
Nobody else set?
Glad you're here, Max.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. If we go in order, Parks and Recreation will be next.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie from Clinton Parks and Rec. I know that my budget was provided about a month ago for you guys to review, and I had reached out to, or Erin had reached out to me
Good.
and asked for a couple of clarifications. So I put that in the packet for you all about some of our larger increases or changes for this year.
Would you want to mention them a little bit? Do you want to mention the increases, please?
So our miscellaneous expense increase is the biggest item from our previous budget. And so that has increased by $18,900, and 18,120 of those, of that increase is from 2 of our contracts, the porta potty contract. So we have 6 standard units and 6 handicap acceptable units from April through November at 6 of our facilities. And we have AEDs that we got installed last year with a grant for the installation. So we received $2,200 for that. And so the $6,000 a year is to maintain and the lease agreement for those AEDs.
And just for everyone, AED is the defibrillators that are there for, they're required?
They're
Be
encouraged. There's
Encouraged,
yeah,
okay.
at high traffic facilities, especially where we have youth sports and things like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
We also have put in a request for an administrative assistant, which is another one of our larger increases for this year. This is a position that used to exist within our department, and I believe in 2019 was when they stopped having a permanent admin at Parks and Rec. But given that we've seen such exponential growth over the last couple of years, we're hoping to bring that position back. And then I also put in a little bit of detail about our revolving account because I know Erin had asked for some clarification on that, as well as our rec wages for our summer staff. But I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
The porta potties, is that, excuse me if you said it in your presentation and I missed it. Is that a new expense or is it just,
So that's been an existing expense, but we've been supplementing it out of the revolving account.
uh-huh,
And so because of the where they are, and it doesn't necessarily come out of our programming fees, we're trying to transition it into revolving. Just so that we can maintain our lower costs for programming.
you're trying to put it into the revolving account
Into the
expenses?
operating account,
Into the operating account, out of revolving?
yes.
Well, and why is that?
Because the revolving account historically has gone towards programming costs and engagement. I suppose that would partially go under engagement, but it's a big chunk of money that comes out of our revolving each year.
Okay, thank you.
But what is the average in your revolving account per year?
So we've been averaging around 160 to 170 going into our revolving each year. And that's for program and event registration as well as facility rentals for our indoor and outdoor facilities.
So the big item on here is 36,400. What if you don't get that? Is it gonna follow up everything with you or?
I'm really hoping that we do get it just because we are taking over a big responsibility from the schools as well with our after school program, before and after school. So we're hoping to have the extra help year round.
It was in the school last year, now it's all with you
It's
this
a
year.
different program, but we're taking over the service of before and after school care.
So what would the role of the administrative assistant would also include the after-school program, or is it
It
just?
would work at the after school program, but fielding some of those questions and like having another person in the office to answer the phones and help out at events and programming, just because it is going to be an undertaking. And our department at the moment we're just one, but in general is 2 people.
And do you have the recreation manager? Is that position hired or?
It is not. We received resumes and we're the chair of our board and I are going to meet with HR to start fielding some of those,
Okay.
hopefully soon.
Good.
Is there staff that was working at the before and after care at the school that will now be like
So
seasonal set, like,
because it's a different program,
okay.
they everybody will have to reapply, but they are after talking to HR, they are classified as seasonal.
Okay.
And that would come out of the revolving account for that program. So the tuition for the program would pay for
I see.
staffing and operational fees.
When you say the average, annual cost is 36,000, that doesn't include benefits.
That does not include benefits. That is just a proposal for that position.
Right.
It would either have to go to personnel board or take the existing position.
Thank you.
You were saying that you were picking up a great deal of responsibility as a result of picking up the after-school program from the schools. Is that what you said?
So the existing program with the schools is being discontinued, and we are going to start a new program, which will do the same service.
Okay, if the school is continuing their program,
They are not.
they are not?
No.
Okay, so in a sense, it is being transferred from the school.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any money being transferred from the schools to cover that?
I don't believe that there's any money because it is a self-sustaining program. So the money goes back into paying for the staff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parents.
Again?
It's a tuition-based program, so it funds itself.
Oh, I see. So the parents pay tuition for it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's not free.
Okay, and will the parents be paying tuition for this?
Everything is going to be pretty much exactly the same for the first year.
Okay, thank you.
You have another sheet that shows it on. You have miscellaneous expense requested 43,000. Then you have the categories. Do you have some place to say what they were last year? Am I missing that?
I can provide my worksheet from last
Where's
year.
where's the biggest,
The
term?
biggest increase is from our contract services, so that's the porta potties and the AEDs.
It was on the packet that was handed to us the first time that they were on the agenda. It did have the itemization of the miscellaneous expenses. I don't know.
I'm here.
Is it in here?
The second one?
Does it? I don't like that. Hold on. Really? I have miscellaneous expenses,
You know,
but I don't have what the last year's were.
yeah, I think so.
Oh, last year's. Oh,
Oh,
I got you.
Comparison.
I didn't see this one. That's not for that.
Paul.
Miscellaneous expense sheet? Was that one we got before? Was there any that stand up? Was there any that stand out that are thorough? So the biggest expense there is the lease agreement.
That's the porta potties and the AEDs for the facilities.
Mackenzie, are those on like a contract basis? Do we sign like a
So
contract every?
the AEDs are annual and the
Yeah.
porta potties are seasonal, but they are from April to November. And we paid the sum for that rather than per visit.
Okay. Do we send out requests for additional estimates each year?
We did
Or-
last year and Pleasant View came in the lowest out
Mhm.
of all of the surrounding areas for the amount of times that they come and clean them
Mhm.
or do any sort of required maintenance. So if anything happens in between the scheduled times for service, they'll come out and take care of it.
So
for
you,
us.
yeah, so you do check those contracts. Thank you.
Anybody else have any
Yeah.
any
I don't have
questions?
other Questions? I'm good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
You also. Have a great night. And the last one is the school department.
You don't have to.
Keep this in about 7 minutes, so.
You can, yeah.
The ball's in your court.
Just. Well, I had asked and said.
You want a copy of this presentation? Have it up there so that we can kind of see on the same slide. So what we're going to present tonight is budget version B. So this was reviewed at the last school committee meeting, which was on March 24th. I think it was. Yeah, so if you look at our first slide here, we got the process. So we really start our budget process in November, when we'll start looking at our staffing projections and enrollment projections. In December, we gather budget requests from our staff. In January, we have meetings with the principals, and then that kind of compiles everything. January 27th, we presented our preliminary budget to our tri-council, so all of our school councils and the school committee. March 10th, we made some changes from the preliminary budget to what we called budget version A. We made some additional revisions for budget version B. And then obviously this is the next step in the process, and then we'll continue with the next versions. So our original preliminary budget was a $35 million operating, about an 8.9% increase. I was built using our staff budget requests. We didn't really add any additional staff. Budget version A, we cut out about almost 600,000, 570,000, got it down to a 7.13% increase. There were no personnel cuts between the preliminary and version A. We went through and looked at all supplies, technology, those types of things. To get from budget version A to budget version B, we cut another 677,000 to get our total operating budget tonight that we're presenting at 33,890,000, which is a 5.03% increase over FY25. That is our total operating, so that's not just the general. So the general fund amount is less than that. Get to that in a minute. So when we did budget version B, we'll talk about the expenses, some of the assumptions we made. I'll go through a summary of some of the categories, the significant changes by account, and talk about some of the reductions in force we made. We actually have eliminated some positions to get to our target number of budget version B. And our revenue, looking at the projected Chapter 70, talk a little about federal funding, school choice, circuit breaker, and then just talk about a couple considerations, things I think we should consider moving forward. So for our expenses, all of our collective bargaining agreements are currently in negotiations. We do have wage increase placeholders included in the budget. I do have a note there that we have verbally reached an agreement with the CTA. The verbal agreement that's been reached has not been voted on yet. We're still compiling everything. But I would say that the verbal agreement is within the parameters that are in this current budget. Out of district tuition increases, those are unknown. Any unknown increases are assumed to be 3.69%. So basically the state sets a rate that they're allowed to go up. The approved programs are allowed to go up. There are some exceptions to that. They can make different appeals based on things. So we use the 3.69 until we hear otherwise as they set their out of district tuition rates. We're currently reviewing our enrollments. Obviously placements change. I know we have at least one move in since we compiled this budget. So we're continuing to update that. And vocational enrollment. We have some placeholders in there for our estimated enrollment at Assabet and Leicester. We have a new vocational preferred partnership agreement with Leicester Public Schools so our students can access career technical education there. Applications received by April 1st indicate that there are potentially more students than we had budgeted, although that's who applied. I don't know. We've got to wait till we get the acceptance numbers. It's not significantly enough off, but it's a few. So our budget version B summary. So we kind of break it out. There's a general fund and circuit breaker. So if we look at those are kind of the funds come through the town. And we got our budget version B has $33,597,000, which is a $1.885 million change, which is about 5.9% increase. Circuit breaker, which is a reimbursement from the state for our special education expenses that are extraordinary. We received 1.68 in circuit breaker reimbursement. That's a $450,000 increase over last year, so we're applying all of that this year. And we have to. What we did last year, we have a year to apply it. And then, so that brings our general fund down to 31,916. So what we're asking for essentially is a $1.434 million increase, which is a 4.71% increase. But I ask you to remember that number when we get to Chapter 7. So some of the significant changes by account. Some of these are minor compared to others, like the first one's a $9,000 increase. What I did was any account that is over 4.71%, I just kind of highlighted. So for a curriculum coordinator, it was $9,000. It has to do with how we're doing some of our special education team leaders, basically the people that run those chairs and chair meetings. Administrative technology and support, that's 12,000 based on our copier contract. Classroom teachers is a big one, 6.7% increase, but the salary is the number is 673,000. Medical and therapeutic salaries, 95,000. Substitutes, our substitute account was significant this year. So right now we've projected about $100,000 increase in substitutes based on our actuals. We'll continue to refine that. That's probably a line that we would look at if we had to make an adjustment to tuition in a future budget, because some of those we know why they were higher, because it might have been like a long-term sub situation. Instructional assistants, about a 5% increase based on assumed salaries for next year, reflecting our projected staff. About $9,000 for some of our distance learning, which is like some of our early college or virtual high school, basically computer-based learning. Instructional coaches or mentors. These are mentors and teachers. We added $4,500 in this line because normally we fund that out of Title IIA, which is a federal grant that I don't think is going to exist anymore. General classroom supplies, about $11,000 increase, and that's based on the requested and vetted supply needs. So teachers make requests, and then they review them with the principals, and then the principals review them with me and with Annette, and we go through. So it's not just anything they ask for; it's a vetted request. Instructional hardware, that's a huge number there, as far as 213% or 133,000. It's to replace Chromebooks. It's for our continued refresh cycle. The note is the reason it looks like a large increase is because it was significantly reduced last year, because when we made the budget, we had we were able to get some grant funding to pay for it. So we were able to take it out of last year's budget. There is some concern right now because in the last 2 weeks or so, price of Chromebooks has gone up significantly because they're basically all shipped out of China. So what was maybe a $240 Chromebook, I think this morning was about $380, and they're considered out of stock. So other instructional hardware.
Was there any grants available this year?
We have maybe, but we have some. We might try to do a little bit. We have some grants that we got to make sure we spend down by June 30th. We might try to reallocate a little in anticipation of this. The other instructional hardware is some interactive screens and projectors, just to continue updating some of those in the buildings, about $12,000. Instructional software, that increase is another one that there's a bunch of, whether it's iReady or STMath or some of the other software that we're using across the district. A lot of those, we have some grants that are, particularly STMath, that are either phasing out or ending. So that's to maintain the current software. The guidance is just reflecting projected staffing. Same pretty much with psychological services, medical health services. There's a district-based nurse for an out-of-district placement. We have a student who requires a one-to-one nurse all day. We had to hire that position.
So that's a new position?
Pardon?
That's a new position?
It exists this year.
That must be tough to see.
Do you want to move?
It was
Yeah, out of the sun?
yeah, it was it's existing right now because when the placement happened this year, they don't provide the nurse. We have to provide the nurse. So it was it kind of was in our budget before that, because when she was in the building before, she had a one-to-one medical person as well, or the student, I should say. But we had taken it out of this line, anticipating, we thought that out of district was going to provide it. We've had to build it back in. Transportation went up 10% based on our bid results. We had to go out to bid this year. That was the lowest and only bid we received from D. Athletics, right now, it went up, it's at 116%, 116,000, but 62 is, 629 is for transportation costs. And then maintenance of equipment, there's an increase, it looks like a big increase percentage, but it's $17,000 to start repairing some of the cafeteria tables and some of the elementary school chairs. The elementary school chairs are breaking, they've pretty much been breaking for a while. They used to have they were kind of started breaking prematurely and they had sent us sort of a fix. And we've been using that as they break to fix them. Our custodians maintain them. Now we get charged like $100 anytime we need one of those fixes. So it's basically more cost effective to start looking at replacing the chairs. Network and and that is one of the things we might look at also, not phasing it in so that we might be able to, a long-term replacement solution might be taking some of the newer chairs from the middle school in a few years, but they have various size chairs at the elementary school, so we got to make sure we're getting the right kind. Network and telecommunication expenses, that's just some contractual increases for things, different networking services. And sick leave buyback, we projected an additional 50,000 based on our projected retirees. So that's very quick, very, overview, but that's kind of line by line. One of the things I did want to show, reductions in force for budget version B. So some of the changes that we're making in this version of the budget, we're eliminating the assistant superintendent position. We are going to replace it with the director of special education, so it will be a minor savings, not a full savings. But the goal is that by shifting back to more of that focused position, we'll be able to better organize and maybe streamline our special education department moving forward. Payroll, we do have a retirement anticipated in payroll, and I believe that she is planning to, we're going to have her stay sort of part-time to help kind of transition us out. So we're not going to replace that position this time, but we are going to try to keep her on part-time. Family outreach, we have 3 positions right now that are all year round. We're changing 2 of those positions to school year only. At the high school, we're going to eliminate the Dean of Students position that was originally funded with ESSER. There's a special education position we're going to eliminate. It's currently vacant. We did have a resignation in the last month, and kind of knowing this is coming, we're just not filling the position. We should be able to do it because with the change in the MCAS graduation requirement, there are some classes that were very specific to trying to help kids pass the MCAS that we're probably going to be able to eliminate. Foreign language, we are going to have a correction course for one of our Spanish teachers. Kind of naturally, we had 3 Spanish teachers, and then we added French. And when we added French, we kind of had a little bit more foreign language option capacity than we necessarily fully needed. So you're allowed to teach one out of your subjects. Some of them have been teaching like a history or different things like that. But we are trying to bring Spanish back into the middle school. We do have a vacancy there, so we are looking at shifting that position over to the middle school to do Spanish for our 7th and 8th graders. Clinton Middle School, Dean of Students position would be a reduction in force. Once again, that was one that was added with ESSER funds. When those were added, we kept them in the teachers union with the anticipation that we knew we might not be able to fund them long term. It was part of kind of that coming back from COVID, using some of those COVID funds. So this is kind of the natural progression of that. Same thing with the math interventionist that was funded with ESSER. The math interventionist position is she's planning on relocating and resigning. And our music teacher.
Steve, what's a math intervention?
It's basically someone that if you're like struggling with math, they give you extra help.
So we won't have anybody with them doing that? Or?
I mean, everyone will still have lots of math teachers. We just want to have someone whose dedicated job is the extra.
Okay.
Yeah. We've only had that position probably, like I said, it was funny with that, so we probably only had it 2 years. And then we'll have the music, a reduction of a half of an FTE, so reducing it from 2 to 1.5, which still we believe should be plenty that would interact. It's not going to impact any of the general music classes, and it shouldn't impact the ensembles. Clinton Elementary School, We did have an 8th section of kindergarten this year, so we're going to eliminate one of the kindergarten sections and one of the IA sections. We don't project our kindergarten enrollment to be as large this year. And there's a 4th grade teacher on maternity leave. We're going to not fill that for next year. And there's a school year administrative assistant, that position that we are going to eliminate at the elementary school. So those are all positions that we eliminated from the budget to get from budget version A to budget version B, because the number we were trying to hit was the chapter 78 number. So as we transition here into kind of funding sources, we look at the main sources. We have chapter 70 state aid, which is calculated based on enrollment, the town's ability to contribute. Circuit breaker, that's our reimbursement for, based on a percentage of our special education expenses that exceed 4 times the foundation amount. And then the local contribution. So just for circuit breaker, just for, I forget the exact numbers that they use right now, but let's say the foundation enrollment, foundation number is about 16,000, it's probably a little more than that. So you go 4 times that. Anytime you spend more than $64,000 to educate a student, there's a certain percentage of any of that over that you get reimbursed. So if we have an out-of-district placement that costs $200,000, then you subtract those 64, and on that, 136,000, you might get 60% or 80% or whatever the state reimburses it at. The state percentage, it's supposed to be 80%, right? So it's supposed to be 75. It's never 75 because it's based on, would they take the claims and they look at what they budgeted, and then that's the percentage. Local contribution, the amount of local funds used to meet the school budget, basically that would be the taxes. So the preliminary cherry sheets for the governor's budget came out. I'm sure you've seen them. But the projected chapter 70 increase for Clinton is $1,434,947. That's why we use that as our target, to basically say if the chapter 70 educational aid of the town is supposed to go up by that, that's a significant number. We definitely shouldn't be asking for more than that. And that's what we put down. Circuit breaker, this is just a little bit of the history of circuit breaker. We don't need to go through it, but it just sort of lets you just kind of see how we got to that 1 point, sort of the history of it. And now we're at 1.69. That is another one of the reasons that the Student Opportunity Act has been making some of these chapter 70 increases, is because of the out-of-district costs. Some of the additional funding sources we have, school choice. Our school choice has been decreasing. Mostly because we've closed school choice for grades 6 and below, based on our enrollment, particularly in those lower grades. Also entitlement grants. We receive over $1 million in entitlement grants. The biggest ones are supplemental special education services, which is a 240 grant. Title I, which is typically for academic support based on economic status. Title II, which was for professional development. Teacher quality improvement. Title III is for English learners. Title IV is more for like a well-rounded education, and Perkins is for career. Most of these have a supplement, not supplant caveat on them. So a lot of them we've used for the same expenses for many, many years, because that way we don't put them in the budget. So we're never supplanting the budget. The current projection, currently we're concerned that there could be a cut or elimination of some of these federal entitlement grants, which would have another impact on the grant. Let me go to this one real quick. You can see that 91% of these grants go to salary. So for example, if Title I was cut, and we had to eliminate, say, a reading specialist position, it's not as simple as just eliminating a reading specialist, because most likely that reading specialist is going to have seniority and you would bump someone for another area that they're certified for. So you're going to be absorbing a more expensive position into the general fund and losing a less expensive position. So we'll have to monitor that. The Title IIA, not much of that is for salaries, and we tried to increase that. That's that mentor line I mentioned that we increased by $4,500. This mostly goes to mentors to support our new teachers, which will require to have a new teacher induction program. And This is the one that I feel, the rest of that typically goes to our professional development, because that's really what this is for. This is the grant that I'm the least confident in being funded next year. I would predict Title IIA is probably going to be mostly gone. Title I, I think, will probably exist, but I think what they're going to try to do is make it a lot more portable, so that it might be used for private school tuitions and things like that. Title III is for English learners. That one helps fund our family liaisons. Title IV, social emotional learning coordinators, some tutoring, and it also supports some of our like early college and project lead the way positions. IDEA is 21.6 of our IAs, right? So like a third of every instructional assistant in our roughly is funded through one of those grants, and 262 is basically the same thing, it's just for pre-K. So that's kind of the entitlement grants. I skipped over this one. This is school choice, just kind of showing the balance in the school choice. One of the things we can say is that we have been overspending the school choice the last few years because of the large amount that had accumulated in there. We're trying to reduce the amount of salary carried in school choice this year so that we can start not deficit spending it essentially, because we are anticipating that not in FY26, probably not in FY27, but in FY28, it's going to be very important to have some school choice because that's when Student Opportunity Act will end. So the bottom line, our general fund was $31,916,308, which was an increase of $1,434,947, which is a 4.71%. Our state aid, as it's listed in the governor's budget, is going up that exact amount, which is 7.03. So essentially what we're asking for would be nothing from the local contribution. Although I know that is, when I say asking for nothing, I mean, that's a direct application. I also understand there are indirect costs, benefits obviously being one of them, that also support the schools that are part of our net school spend. Just a couple considerations. I know health insurance is a big one. It's been a big topic of conversation. I know last year we had less than a 1% increase for this current year. Next year is looking at a 24.6. So to your average of about 12.5. I know that we have some, I believe that there's some money being returned from the previous Neshoba Minuteman Health Group. I think that knowing that we're going to get some additional, we anticipate an additional Student Opportunity Act money in FY27. I would hope that we would consider maybe trying to look at maybe using that to kind of step up that increase, so the cost averaging and moving forward. To look at, if you figure about it's probably approximately 12.5. I mean, that's usually, I know when I was in regional school district, we assumed insurance was going to go up 10% every year without our budget. And then we went from there. So using a little bit of those one-time funds to kind of get it down a little more to like cut that 24 to say 18. And then you kind of save some of those one-time funds maybe to help next year, but you're trying to look at cost averaging, maybe make it an 18 and an 18 each year instead of trying to build it all in 1 year's budget. And also just ask to consider that we have approximately 7 less positions next year, be 7 less enrollees from the school in the insurance. When we looked at that, which that's a full savings, so that's probably $120,000 or whatever that is. So looking forward, FY26 next year is the Student Opportunity Act year. Our plan is to hire a special education director and really review the special education programming and begin planning our programming for the new middle school that's scheduled to open in FY28. FY27 should be the final Student Opportunity Act year, so we would anticipate another large increase from the state in Chapter 70. Our goal will be to start implementing some of those special education changes once we've had the new special ed director in place. We'll probably start reviewing our athletics positions and offerings at that time and finalizing staffing positions plans for the new middle school. FY28 there'll be no Student Opportunity Act. We'll be opening the new school. we'll probably begin looking at a review of the current technology department because the new school will be heavily tech-based for everything from, alarms to thermostats to everything. So just kind of seeing where we are with that. We'll probably be looking at using school choice funds, and then all of a sudden we'll be back to collective bargaining agreements being open. So that's my quick overview. In your packet, after following the presentation, there's also, you would see there's account summary for the town accounts, and then there's the line item summary of the budget. So I guess at this point, I'm happy to field any questions.
I'm not familiar with the Student Opportunity Act.
Okay.
Is that like,
Student Opportunity Act was passed probably 5 years ago or so. It almost came in right before COVID, almost as COVID hit. I think the
Mhm.
first year COVID was supposed to be the first year of it.
yeah,
And it was a law, Student Opportunity Act. And what it did is it looked at the Chapter 70 formula
mhm,
and it tried to make adjustments to how they calculate that aid. And essentially what they said is that they had been under calculating the true cost for special ed. Primarily, the biggest ones were special ed and English learners. And so they readjusted their formula because we file. We're constantly submitting data to the state. We have to file student reports with all our census and all their categories, our staff reports. We have to have the connection between attendance and grades and staff and everything. So they look at our demographics and it populates a little sheet of, what grade, are they low income, are they EL, are they whatever? And then they calculate what they project the cost to educate them was. So like I said, they identified some areas that they felt they were underfunded in the old Chapter 70 formula. They made those adjustments. And then they realized that they couldn't afford those adjustments. So what they did is they said they were going to phase those in over 6 years. 7 years. And I think it's 6 years, but it became 7 because they delayed it. So they ended up doing 1/6 increments for all of those. So what you see when we get that, so really they did this study and they said that based on what it should cost us, what we should be getting to meet our students' needs should be 1.5 million times 6, right? So it should be 9 million or something like that, right? But they didn't have 9 million to give us, so they've been giving us 1.5 million a year to try to build that up. So FY27 would be the last year that we would see those additional increments in the Chapter 70 formula. Then that means when we go to FY28, it would kind of be reverting back to sort of more similar increases to what you might have seen in 2018 or something like that, where it'll still be based on our population. Our population has been not going up tremendously, but creeping up a little bit. So I would anticipate we'd still see an increase in Chapter 70. It's just not going to be that big. So there are a lot of districts right now that their enrollment's going down, and they're in what they call a hold harmless situation, where they're getting minimum aid, and that's a lot of times what you hear on the television. Right now, for the last few years, we wouldn't even be in a minimum aid situation because our population is going up as well.
So with regard to that, so over that 6-year period, so they were trying to catch up to the actual cost. So now, after years 6 or 7, the increments to keep up with that cost are just going to be would just be slighter.
It's going to be something based more on just our enrollment and inflation, right? So it's going to be lower.
So there would be no anticipation of there being a downward?
No, and actually one of the components of Chapter 70 as it exists right now, which can be a little controversial depending on who you ask, is they have a hold harmless provision. So essentially that means your Chapter 78 never goes down. So even if your enrollment goes down, so that's the argument that I find myself getting into is you'll have districts that say, hey, our enrollment went down. We're only getting minimum per pupil aid, which is $60 a kid, right? And the argument that we would make is, yeah, but you're overfunded. Like your number to begin with is based on, last year's enrollment. You don't even have that many kids anymore. That's why you're getting a minimum aid, because you're already getting too much money. But I guess even if your enrollment went down, those people still vote, so they give them a little bit, so.
Does anybody have any questions? That was an awful lot for me to absorb. I don't know. if I'm gonna-
Listen, and I'm happy to answer anything else, or Annette, we can get you any reports you need. We can get you, any more specific information. I'm happy to come talk about anything, if you need it. So don't feel, if you dig through and something comes up, feel free to reach out.
Thanks for laying it out so clearly and leaving stuff behind. Appreciate it.
Steve, I one comment if I can. I don't want
Yeah.
to throw a wrench into this at all, but since I've been serving on school committee, Matt Varakis, Colonial Drive, chair of the school committee. Steve's always been a good partner to the town in regard to comparing Chapter 70 and student opportunity act money coming into the town and local share. We recognize that benefits are a huge part of our workforce because we have the largest workforce. But every department comes in front of these boards and asks for increases year over year, that although we're smaller, are increases to their actual budget for local share. And by and large, I don't think we've ever done that. And from time to time behind closed doors, I push Steve to at least ask for some things, because we are cutting positions that from a utopian perspective, the schools would love to be able to have. But in order for us to be a good partner and understand the landscape of what's going on in town, it's hard to justify asking for those expenses because we can do without them. It doesn't mean we should do without them. So I think we've always been a good partner, and in future asks, we could be put in a position where we're in front of you all saying, we need a 3% increase from local share. And I just hope that we can all always come back to conversations like this in the past 5 or 6 years ago. Well, they've never asked us for an increase in local share before. They probably really need it, and education is pretty important. So I just for commentary's sake, just wanted to point that out, because I think Steve does a great job at doing that. And we recognize it is the right thing to do for the town. So we're all partners in this. So just for the record.
Yeah.
See, a couple of years ago, you put in the school bus program. How's that doing?
The vans.
Yes.
It's okay. We were actually just talking about the other day. I think one of the challenges has been drivers. We've been lucky. We have one driver who is super reliable. We've had some difficulty, not difficult,
Yeah.
but some turnover in the other driver. And then that creates some challenges for us when we have those. And then just with some of the changes of the routes, just making sure that we're, kind of takes that another lens to kind of make sure we're trying to maximize the right route, because some routes make sense and they're very cost effective, and others, it might actually be cheaper to just pay the company that does it. And so we want to make sure we're doing that. So do I think it works? Yes. But it's something that I think, at some point we'd either need to decide we're really committing to, and it's going to be some investments of honestly having more of a transportation coordinator and building it up more, or it's something that we're going to say, maybe it's better just when these vans kind of get beyond their useful life, we're going to sell them and do what we can do. So, so I think overall, I think it's definitely not costing us money. I don't know that it's been it's tremendous savings, because just some of the challenges it brings up.
Thank you.
How does the school committee fit into the final decision of the budget? Did they give any feedback to you or to us or to, because I'm sure they meet a lot more and understand a lot better than I do.
Yeah, I think they already have, right?
Yeah, so every version of the budget is presented to the school committee. So we talk about that with the school committee. We actually have our own public hearing that we're required to have on Monday, which is basically, we presented this budget version last school committee meeting, and Monday is a posted public hearing. It was in the paper and everything. So if anyone, let's say someone said, I feel strongly that you shouldn't reduce a music teacher, they could come and they could talk, right?
That's this Monday.
That's
It's coming.
yeah. And then if we had any feedback from you by Monday, we would share that, and then we would go forward from there. But I think right now, I think the consensus of the school committee has been kind of, we're trying to get to, like Matt said, trying to get to this number. Because we didn't think really it was reasonable to ask for more than this number. And that really it would be kind of, we don't know, there's a point where I don't know all the other pieces, right? Like we know our one little piece might be a big piece, but we don't know all the other pieces. And so whatever the feedback that you give us then would be kind of what we would need to say, okay, am I on the version C, D, and E of my budget, or are we looking okay? So I think I think we're kind of in the holding pattern until we kind of get a little more direction. The other part of that direction could also come from the state, because I know that they're wrapping up those, kind of wrapping up the hearings, and they haven't come out with the next round of cherry sheets. So when those numbers come out, we'll see if there's been any significant changes to any of the funding. I know there's some concerns with some of the unknowns at the federal level on what that could impact. They've been pretty good during the Student Opportunity Act. Pretty much every year, the governor has said we're funding the Student Opportunity Act, and then our number has stayed the exact same all the way across on the cherry sheet. So unless they're really going to walk that back, but really that, I would be surprised at that. I think it's more likely that, like I said, some of those school districts getting, minimum aid that are hoping for some more. I don't know if there's going to be more to give them. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that's where we are right now, is kind of bringing those in. And I'd say, I presented a bunch of budget positions that we're eliminating. And I think all of those positions, like I said, a lot of them were funded by ESSER. A lot of them were things that we brought back as a response from COVID. So I'm not, I'm not sitting there saying it's doomsday or we can't run the schools or anything like that. Like, I think a lot of them were, and actually Matt and I were talking about this one day, and I think it was a great way to say that some of these were kind of like a proof of concept, right? Is this going to work? Do we think was the math interventionist extremely effective, or was the dean of students positions extremely effective? And I think when we look at some of them, it's like, we could, for what we got out of those positions, we could probably do it a little different way. And that's what we're moving on, is we have to make these decisions. And so that's where we are, and we'll be a team player. And like I said, I always say it when I have these meetings, that we'll find a way and buses are going to run, but I just need to, it's a matter of what product that we want to put out there, and we'll do the best we can with the funding we have.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Michael, about do we know how many employees are non-school personnel? Do we have that number by any chance?
We can get it, yeah, yep. So what the breakdown with our total FTEs are between.
Yeah, exactly. Any employee that would have an impact on the insurance aspect of it?
Yeah, that number we would have, because we have that enrollment figure, the census figure for health insurance, so we definitely would know that.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else? Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anything else that we want to discuss tonight?
I think so.
If there's nothing else, I'd like to ask motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Motion made, second. All in favor?
Aye.
No. Is it okay with you? We ended it, okay?
Yeah.